welcome to the 30-somethings version of Reinventing School. I'm starting to lose count, which is really great. We've been doing this since May, inspired by the pandemic, and trying to understand what are we doing with school, not only at this moment, but also what are we doing with school overall. And we've been looking at it from lots of different angles. Last week, we had 3 state superintendents or commissioners on. We've talked about curiosity. We've talked about home learning pods and student motivation and student empowerment, even cyber attacks and the possibility of having schools be cyber attacked in the middle of this craziness, and also a lot about the virus and how schools have sort of taken on the role of trying to make big health decisions that I don't know if they're prepared to make. So along the way, we stumbled into this concept of local school districts. And there are, if I have this right, about 13,000 local school districts in the United States, and they make a lot of decisions. So it seems as though the hierarchy works like this, and then we'll all play around with whether I've got this right or not. There is the student, there is parents and teachers, they work in a school. The school is supervised by a principal. The principal works for a school district of some sort. And those who supervise the school district are typically local citizens, unpaid, who provide a vast amount of time in the interest of the community. And they don't really report to the state, but that would be the next level up. And there is a state commissioner. And then, of course, we have a Department of Education run by a Secretary of Education at the national level. So one of the things that I think is very interesting that I just want to set the stage a little bit is last week I was fortunate to speak at the Edutopia conference, and one of the other speakers, far more senior and better informed than I'll ever be, was one of our first guests on the series, Andreas Schleicher, who keeps track of the world of education and puts together for the OECD a remarkable amount of very useful data. So I want to point everybody to the American flag that's about 3/4 of the way over to the right. And what you're looking at here is who makes decisions at each level of government. And you'll see that in the Netherlands, over on the left, just about all the decisions are made at the school level. This is all public lower secondary education, so what we would call middle school. In the Czech Republic or the UK, quite a bit of that as well. But when you go all the way over to Turkey, it looks as though there's a central authority, the state. By that, they mean the nation. But the United States is unusual because of the size of that blue stripe. The decisions are made locally. Many, many, many decisions are made locally. And what that means is the school boards make a lot of decisions. So I wanted to get to know, what does a school board do? I thought that would be a useful thing to learn. So I invited a few folks who certainly know a lot more about it than probably I ever will. You guys have devoted an immense amount of time and energy to this. So with that, let me explain that Karen Brom is joining us as our very first audio-only guest. So Karen, hello, and please tell us a bit about yourself and where you are in the world, and whether you're part of a school board. I guess we have to ask that question.
Yes, I am part of a school board. So I am located not currently, but my district is in West Hempstead, New York, which is a small suburb on Long Island. We have about 1,950 registered students in our public school system, but we do have a lot of other children in our district that opt to go to private or parochial school. We have a 7-member school board that does make quite a few decisions for 5 buildings of children and the rest of our community, and like I said, those children that are going to public and parochial school as well. We are currently, as is the rest of the country, dealing with a large amount of issues that no one ever thought we would have to deal with due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So currently, it appears we're making a lot, like you said, making a lot of health decisions and, quarantine decisions and things like that we thought we would never have to make based solely on CDC and Department of Health guidelines. They're giving us the what to do, and then we have to make a lot of decisions. So the local superintendents, I can honestly say that's not a job I'd want to have right now.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my paying job has nothing to do with that. So I
Okay. So what do you do when you're not spending vast amounts of time on the school board?
I work for the Nassau County Police Department. I am
Okay.
currently the Assistant Bureau Director of the Communications Bureau for the police department down here.
Very good. So you have a real job.
I do have
You do.
well, I have a paying job and a non-paying job. I do consider them both to be very real.
Got it. Got it. And we should point out that the area you're in is in suburban New York City, right? Yep.
Yes. Well, we're on Long Island, so we're
There
not,
you go.
for that purpose, we are considered Western Nassau, which is closer to Queens than, say, Montauk.
Okay.
But, and I understand from your email that you're a West Hempstead alum, so you know where we are.
I am. Yes, this is my home school district we're talking to. So
which is very exciting. We'll have to discuss that at another time.
I would love that. Okay, great. Well, we're gonna scoot south a bit now for Armando Rodriguez, and tell us a bit about the area you're in, which is probably very different from New York City, and how you got involved and what it is you do. And you also have a national role, right?
Correct. I have actually hold two national roles and a state role, as well as my local role. And so, as we know, the majority of the decisions come down local control, especially after the ESSA Act, which was sort of came to sort of fix some of the issues that we're having with the No Child Left Behind Act and allow for more local control, as it was originally in regards to school districts. So my name's Armando Rodriguez. I sit in the Canatillo School Board. This is actually in West Texas, El Paso.
So you're near Mexico, fairly, yeah?
Correct. We're right on the border. So my district is on the border of New Mexico and Mexico. So we're right in that area. So you have 2 countries, 3 states, and multiple municipalities around it. In Texas, we have about 1,247 school districts, and the majority of them are usually about a 7-member board, and we have about 5 million plus children in Texas public schools. Knowing that we have our local control, but we also have the state and then the federal. And so going to some of those positions I sit on, in Texas, I sit on the Texas Association of School Boards, where I just became the secretary treasurer, and hopefully we'll climb that route. And in regards to a national level, I sit on NALEO, which is the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. And on that board, Eric Garcetti, the mayor of LA, is on that board, as well as all the way to Secretary of State Nally Gorbea of Rhode Island. And so that's one of the national boards. And then the other one that I chair as the National Hispanic Council on the NSBA board allows me to sit on the NSBA board. And so looking at those different areas of how they have an impact on public ed is important to me, especially how we address the issues of educating all kids in our school districts.
So the obvious question is, do you also work as a full-time job in another area? Like, how do you find all this time?
So in Texas, people sometimes think we make the superintendent's salary, and I'm sure this is for the majority of school board members do not get paid. It's a volunteer position. And so the one that pays my job is the one that I mostly try to focus on, but I do a lot of work in regards to our public educational system locally and how we could fix those issues and be able to address some of the issues that are currently happening at a state.
So what is your job then? Who pays you?
So I work for a sports construction company based out of Austin, Texas. It's We do synthetic turf, but we do tracks, tennis courts, and we have the Dallas Cowboys, the Texans. We just picked up the Chargers. That's not my territory. My territory is just West Texas, but pretty much sports construction. I've been in construction for quite a number of years, and I love working for Hollis Construction. So
So you have a life that's entirely different from the world of schools. Okay, very helpful. Thank you. And we'll get into this, Karen. Your district and Armando's district are both very rich in particular cultures. So we'll come around to that because that's a really interesting piece of this. Now, David Snyder, I think you told me that you're kind of not as involved as you were, but it sounds like the amount of involvement that you have had is extraordinary. So give us a sense of some of the history and what you're up to now and all that, and where you are.
Well, currently I'm not sitting on a school board as I lost the election here recently, which was disappointing, but it happens. Happens for all of us every once in a while. I was, at the time of my loss, the chairman of the AIAN, American Indian Alaska Native Council for the NSBA. And I sat as a director.
What's the N? What was that N?
AIAN, American Indian Alaska Native Council.
Okay, and the other set of initials?
That was the AIAN and then NSBA.
What is that?
School Association.
National School Board Association. Okay, because we're going to be throwing around some terms, and I want to make sure everybody is clear on what they mean. Okay, David, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's better to get clarity than keep moving forward and leave a fog. So sitting on those two boards, heading the AIAN, also gave me a seat at the Western region. For NSBA, they actually still hold meetings. So I was on that board of directors, as well as the Wyoming School Board Association board of directors, since I had the seat as the chair. So two national boards, Western region, state board, and then another regional board here in Wyoming, the BOCES, Board of Cooperative Education Services. We get together with a lot of the other, since Wyoming is so small, a lot of times we can't afford to pay for an in-house to be able to take care of a lot of our students. So we cooperate with a bunch of other districts, and then we send students out of the area, unfortunately, to get the services that they require. Sat on that board, and then my local board as well. And I was there, actually started in 1994, missed a few elections here and there, and just ended now with a total of 18 and a half years total. So
You going to do it again?
I would be willing to do it again. The last the last year got a little intense, especially with the COVID happening and all the meetings that I was attending. It became a little overwhelming at times to try to do my regular job. And
What is your regular job?
I'm the director for the commodity program, the food distribution program on the Indian reservation.
Ah, okay. So there's a connection to the world of Native Americans and all of that. Tell us
Right.
about that. Is that that's part of the association or one of the boards that you had served on? Yes.
Yes.
So give us a little perspective on the number of students and how public schools and reservations and how do you can you paint us a picture a bit? And then I'm going to actually ask both Karen and Armando about the groups that are in their area because actually all three of you happen to have a particular different ethnicity, which is kind of interesting. So,
Okay.
David?
Well, I reside on the Wind River Indian Reservation, which is right in the middle of Wyoming. And we have 4 school districts on the reservation that are on the reservation, and then 5 that surround us. So all relatively small districts. And again, the ones on the reservation are kind of controlled right now with the COVID-19 happening. The intertribal councils, which there are 2 tribal councils that reside on the reservation. We have the Eastern Shoshone, which is my tribe, and then the Northern Arapaho, which is actually my wife's tribe. that reside here, and then together they form the Intertribal Council. From that, right now, the Intertribal Council controls basically what goes on in the reservation. So we are right now kind of on lockdown. Our schools are still not in session. We can have up to 10 students per building in each place, and we choose to do a lot of our special ed or special needs students that really need the extra help, and we're bringing them in cycles. We'll have, bring a few in and then
Okay.
send them back out just to make sure that, learning is happening.
How would you describe income level and connectivity and all of those issues?
Connectivity, actually, we're doing really well here. We have a local, the Arapaho tribe actually has an internet company. And right now, the school districts are paying to connect every household that we have. I think right now, we have 520 students in Fort Washakie. I think we're missing maybe 20 students total.
So you're very near one to one then.
Yeah, really close to getting.
That's really cool. All right, let me stop you for a sec. So
Right.
Armando, you have, I'm assuming, a pretty large Spanish-speaking population. So give us a sense of income and culture and how it interacts with the overall public school system, and whether or not everyone learns Spanish. Do all the kids who don't, like, how does that work?
So a lot of our students are either first or second generation um, um, Hispanic speaking students. We have English language learners, and then we have a migrant program as well. So when we're talking about students of color, especially Hispanics, we're having programs that have to deal with either English language learning, the dual language program, migrant education, and other issues that we have pardoning.
It's all right. We've had dogs on the show before. They always have something to say.
You know how Chihuahuas are, so they don't stop.
Right. We can see that if you want to put the Chihuahua on your lap, we're totally fine with that if we want to meet the Chihuahua.
Okay. No. So in regards to that, we have a huge portion that's economically disadvantaged, and so those are factors that are coming to play in our community, and
Yeah.
we're starting to see that in Texas and across the country. So
Most of them public school students? Most of them go to public schools, or do they go to private schools? Like, what's the mix like?
the majority of them go to public schools.
Okay.
Texas is huge on public education. There's a couple charter networks that are coming in to the area, but have not come into our district.
Okay. All right. And Karen, I know, because I'm familiar with the area, that there's been a tremendous influx of Orthodox Jews in your particular suburb outside New York. Yes?
Yes, there have.
So so lay that out for us, please.
So, we've always had, since I was a child, and obviously since you were in town, we've always had a Jewish community in our town. It's always been that way.
Yes.
We have had a large influx of Orthodox Jewish people moving in, and which, again, it's community. It's fine. That's not even remotely an issue. However, the majority of those students attend, obviously, the yeshivas or the local Hebrew Academy.
So private religious schools, yes?
Right.
Full time. So K through 12?
K through 12.
Yeah.
Some do send their children to us to the public schools for kindergarten. However, then they pull the children out and they send them to all the private, or parochial schools, because we do have a lot of children who attend the Catholic schools as well. We bus, which is a large piece of our district, we bus to over 100 locations for private school. Whether it's an Orthodox school or a parochial school or a charter school or a private school. So it becomes a big piece of what we budget for every year.
Yeah. And do you have Do people pay taxes even though that, like, how does the financial arrangement work? My kid goes to a yeshiva, let's say. So am I still funding the public school? Is that my
You,
right, my responsibility as a citizen?
yes, your school tax is based on your residence, not on where you choose to send your child to school. Similar to if you were somebody who never had a child, you're still paying school taxes, or if my mother-in-law still lives in town, she has no children, she pays the same school taxes that I would based on her home assessment. You know, everything is based on the assessment cost.
I was going to
Um,
ask you that. So so the money that you take in, and I'm assuming a lot of it comes from the community, it's property tax, it's income tax,
the
sales
school
tax, right? What's the combination, and about how much money are we talking about?
No, we are only we levy a school tax. That's it. The school district itself levies the school tax. So whatever our budget is, that's the levy we put out to the community every year, and they vote on it because we don't have the ability to just pass it. We're actually the school district is the only municipality whose budget really gets voted on. Like the local fire district, those people, like their board, are in charge of passing their budget, and the water district is in charge of passing their budget. But the school board is the only budget that the taxpayers, the community members, actually vote on. So we come up with a budget which we find to be reasonably sound, and that will cover all the costs.
So how much would that be roughly in a year?
And on a Long Island school district, it could be a lot more than ours, but it's about a $60 million budget.
And how many kids are going through it? About?
Well, again, you got to remember that the budget does not just fund the public school. So that's where I was going to get to with this. But there's about 2,000 children within the public school system right now. And that obviously that budget pays for all the teachers and all that other stuff. However, it also pays for all the busing to the private schools, pays for the books to the private schools. It pays for the nursing and other health services in any private school that is within our school district. And then if we have a child that goes out of our district to another district, then we have to reimburse for health services in that district.
Got it.
Like,
wow. Okay. Complicated. David, you're shaking your head. Yes. Is this because you probably have something similar?
Actually, what we have here on the reservation, the reservation is actually federal land. And so we don't have the ability to levy a mill. Well, in my district, if I levy a full mill will gain us about $22,000. So there's not a lot of money there. What we do have, however, is...
When you say you levy a mill, for those of us like me who don't have any idea what you're talking about, what are you talking about?
What we're talking about is a tax that we put on on the land, actually, for funding our schools.
Mm-hmm.
Say the district of Fremont County School District number 1 in Lander, if they levy a mill, which is, again, goes out to the taxpayers, and it boils down to, I think, a couple dollars per month on their taxes.
Okay.
As far as for their house or for where they live or their land or whatever, and their house, it bumps it up a little bit, so it kind of gets spread out throughout.
Yeah.
They can generate, I do believe, around $2 million. So again, it's based upon the assessment of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Some lands, of course, assess higher than others.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Taxed at a higher rate. But,
so do you feel as though you have, let me ask each of you this. Karen, do you feel on a per student basis that you have a reasonable amount of money to work with, or far too little or far too much?
Well, every year we go over the budget and we try to make it so that we have what we need. We do not try to over budget.
Right.
And we certainly don't try to under budget. This year, we actually, I don't want to say, I don't even know what the right word is, but this year we actually went out with a 0% tax levy to the taxpayers.
Okay.
We did not, or I should say a 0% increase in the tax levy.
Yeah. Okay. And
we
David?
did not even bump up for that reason because of the COVID.
David, enough money or not enough money?
for our districts,
Yeah.
On the reservation, we do quite well. Again, with the impact aid money that comes in that we get in lieu of taxes, we actually make out really well for our students here on the reservation.
Terrific.
All the reservation districts, as long as they have native students, or they're able to get this money. We generate, $4 or $5 million a year based on that.
And how many students are we looking at who are that money is being
On the
spent?
reservation, I was just actually going to pull that number up.
We'll come back to you in a minute. So Armando, how about how you doing on money? You have enough, not enough? Do you want me to write you a check?
No, I mean, in regards to the money, we try to do with what we have, but in regards to addressing the real inequities in the public educational system, we haven't had the ability to address those due to funding. So I think, you have, in regards to us, we see a lot of English language learners and limited English proficient students. And then that's one subgroup, right? You have dual language programs that are cost more, or you could go with a different type of model, which is not as effective, but it does cost money to help with those programs. You have IDEA funding, which is the one that addresses special needs students. And for a long time, the federal government has said they were going to fund us at a certain level, and they have not funded us at what they're funding us. So
short answer is not enough. Yes.
we're making ends meet, but
Yeah.
to really address the issues and really move forward, we need more money.
So Armando, being we're in the midst of this, so tell me what your school board does. What are your main responsibilities? What are the kinds of things that you guys deal with? And then I want to go around once that way, and then I want to ask you, what do you wish you could do? But let's start at what's your job within this, and let's stay very local with this first question, ignoring the greater number of boards that you're on, but just local on the local board. What happens? What are you responsible for? Why are you there? Losing you. You have to unmute.
So in Texas, we're more of a governance model, right? Setting the goals, the expectations, and then letting our superintendent carry those out. So it's sort of like a board of directors of, let's say, a 500 Fortune company.
Yeah. What would a goal be? Give me an example of a goal.
So the goal would be in regards to, let's say, testing, or to address looking at a national level. In Texas, we have a state test, which is one is increasing the number of students and the percentage being able to pass the test, as well as master the test.
So if I were your superintendent and you came in with an agenda of here are the three most important, very specific things you're hoping I'd be able to do in this year, what might they be?
So I'm actually, I have it right here. So in regards to our superintendent, this is our goals by June 2022. Students in each grade level, 3 through 10, will increase reading master level by 8%, increasing master level from 0 to 8%. And then another goal is by 2020, 4th and 7th grade students will improve writing master level by 8%, increasing master level from 0 to 8%. And then another goal is, so we have 4 goals for him because we don't want too many. So by June 2022, students in each grade level 3 through 9 will improve math and algebra master level by 8%, increasing master level from 0 to 8%. And then the last one is by June 2022, seniors will be graduating college, career, and military ready for the component score of 63 to 75.
So you're very specific and measurable, yes?
Correct.
And do you prescribe the way that the superintendent would get there, or does that become the job of the manager?
So it's the job of the board to actually set those goals and expectations. So in Texas, we have the person that we have the ability to hire and fire and really set the expectations. We work with the superintendent. We don't work with everybody on staff, right? That's more micromanaging, and it's not an effective way of being an effective board member on the governance model, right? So you set the expectations for your superintendent and you hold them accountable. We set the tax rate, we set the budget, other issues that we deal with. But when you're talking about you set your goals and your budget should reflect your goals, right? Show me your money and we could see where your goals. If you're talking about equity and wanting to address some of the issues, well, where in your budget are you trying to address that, right?
Okay. All right. So it's fairly tightly managed. Karen, how does it work in your world?
We're very similar to what was just said. We do work in the governance model. We work directly with the superintendent and the assistant superintendents per curriculum to, run the district and have everything done on that level. And then it's for the superintendent and his assistant administrators and or the educators in our district. We try, on the best way we can to allow them to be the leadership there. That's why we hired them, to trust them to do that.
Okay. David? You're muted, please.
Okay, now we're unmuted. Thank you.
Yep.
We run the same way. And again, the school board is actually only over one employee. That's all we have. And that's what we teach the new board members that come in, is we have one employee. That's the superintendent. And it's up to the superintendent to actually to build his or her team, so that the school, we set the goals, we set, again, the parameters and what we want done and how we want it done. And it's up to them to make it happen. It's an easier way to happen. Help.
All of you, each of you, has quite a different job from the job you're doing on the school board. And I'm going to guess that the 7 or 9 or whatever the number of people who are on your board with you probably have a range of jobs as well. But you're dealing with very large budgets, and you're dealing with a lot of status quo and the need for a lot of innovation because the world is changing quickly, right? So when you look around the room, and I'm not asking you to criticize your fellow board members, but particularly in the case of David and Armando, you guys have had a view of lots of school boards and lots of ways that they operate. What do you think of the model? Is it something that, we see the number of decisions that are made in that bar chart that we showed at the beginning. It's a lot of responsibility. I think my local school board is responsible for like $240 million or some incredible thing. And when I look at the resumes, I'm thinking I would never hire any of these people to run a $240 million budget, right? And yet, not only are they not hired, they're voted in. So it's a local political thing. What a peculiar way to manage education for the third largest country in the world. So I don't know. What do you think? How's it going?
You want to go first, David?
I can. And again, I believe it's with local control. And again, we have to learn on your feet. And a lot of times, if there are questions that board members have, and a lot of us, we come into this really cold. I was 27 years old when I first started on the school board. And so coming into this, you've got to ask a lot of questions. But the financial manager and the superintendent are usually pretty good about taking you in and saying, okay, well, this is what we're doing. This is how how we're going to function. And again, handling millions and millions of dollars is something that's, again, it's more status quo than anything. The ones where it kind of gets out of your hands is when you've got to put together buildings, and all those meetings that go along with that is where things kind of get out of control. As far as changing anything, I wouldn't. Local control is the way to go. It has to be. That way you don't have anybody coming back and saying, "Oh, well, it's the top down." It's the state of Wyoming coming in and saying, "You're going to do this. This is how you're going to teach." And really, on the reservation, if they came in and did that, it would kill us, because that doesn't work here. It doesn't work with our students. We have the control to be able to go in and say, okay, well, we need this, and this is how this has to happen. We actually are teaching the tribal languages in the schools here on the reservation. Also, you had asked earlier about the money, how it goes around the state. One of our school districts on the reservation is actually a BIA school, and the Bureau of Indian Education actually funds that. They're dismally financed. They and the state of Wyoming actually stepped up and helped fund their school for them.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the districts on the reservation are publicly funded, which the state of Wyoming again provides all that funding for us through taxes. The reservation, we have an oil tax base that is taken off the reservation, and we've actually made a lot of money for the state of Wyoming, and it's helped again to fund our schools. So it is local control, but it is state funded. So, okay. And again, we are accredited every 5 years to make sure that we're doing, we're making gains in education. Our students are not lacking. We are behind just simply because we live on a reservation, and the students come to us at a low level. So it's it's a fight to begin with, but we're getting more and more students through to college education or off to the military.
And those are the two goals.
That's, the main goal. And at one point in time, my local school district was only a K-8 district. Right. And it's been that way for almost 100 years. I was actually instrumental in helping get that pushed through to be unified to be a K-12. So we are now a K-12 school district, and we can say, yes, we want these kids college and, higher ready. We want them to be able to function in the world and know how to, take care of themselves.
Very cool. I'm listening to you. I'm thinking, boy, this is a guy whose head is really on straight. It's kind of great to listen to you, Karen. You're in a different situation, and you also have it, because I'm just aware, you have a very strong governor who has very strong opinions, and seems quite competent in managing things. Why not just hand it over to him?
Well, that was not a nice question. Listen, here's the situation. You cannot make a state-run school district like that. There's no way to do so, because not every district has the same population of children. Okay. We see that in the New York City school system. The New York City school system runs 5 boroughs worth of education, and those children are able to travel from Brooklyn to Manhattan to go to school, or from Manhattan to Queens to go to school in certain circumstances. On Long Island, there's very different areas and very different populations and very different demographics. So if you combine, like he's now talking about, he would love for us to join districts and condense districts.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of the specific situation.
Right.
Why would you do that? Or why would you not do that?
Is that Governor Cuomo, and with all due respect to Governor Cuomo is looking to reduce public education. He is a big charter school fan, and that becomes a problem for those people that, don't believe in that. And in certain circumstances, like I'm going to use our community because we have the ability, I can speak to it. A lot of people in the community will talk to when budget season comes around, is why are we paying all this money? We shouldn't be paying this much money. We should be paying this. And why does it cost this much money to educate a child? We're 56 districts in Nassau County, and of those 56 districts, West Hempstead is probably second or third to the lowest in what their salary ranges are. Yeah. And, what people don't realize is if we do condense districts or we combine districts, we have to bring our people up to where these other districts are. It's only going to raise your taxes more. However, that being said, again, it's a demographic thing. So for somebody who is from the community and knows the area a little bit, still, take our population now. Not only do we have a large influx of Orthodox Jews, we have a huge L population in our district. A lot of people who are coming in and moving in that don't speak English or are going to school for the first time in the United States or whatever, that requires a lot of care and a lot of education and a lot of different kind of programs that a district, say, just to the north of us, like Garden City, doesn't have that demographic. And not that that's a bad thing, but they don't have the programs and the staff on site now to handle the same demographic that we do.
See, by way of explanation, one of the things that is extraordinary about the New York City area, and I suppose it's true of some other areas, is even an individual small suburb can be sitting next to another suburb with a very different demographic mix. So you mentioned Garden City, which has a very large, old European white population, but it sits next to Hempstead. So you're in West Hempstead, but there's another place called Hempstead, and that has a very large Black and Latino population. So, and then as you go more towards Freeport, which is 2 towns away, it's been a very large Black population. So it's, and I may not have that quite right, that may be my memories, but all of these places are a walk from one to the other. So New York really, Nassau County in particular, extends the notion of what Queens is, which is one of the boroughs of New York, and that it's tremendously diverse with so many different nationalities and heritages and all that. So one of the things that I was doing before we started doing this series was running around the world interviewing kids for a project called Kids on Earth. You'll see the logo at the end of this. And we used to joke that there's really no reason for me to travel around the world. I'll just go to Queens because I'll capture every nationality within a very small area. So with that, Armando, give us a sense, if you would, not only of how your local district works, but also other districts, because you have a view that not many people have. So is this a good model? Is this something that we ought to be thinking about differently?
I think it's a really good model. I think there's always room for improvement, but the real question is whether the behaviors within the model are actually doing what they're supposed to, right? In a governance model. Are we really focusing on student outcomes? AJ Craybill, which was our deputy commissioner, says student outcomes won't change unless adult behaviors change. And what ends up happening into a lot of school boards, especially in regards to certain individuals that don't want to get, I've had colleagues where they didn't want training, they had only specific reasons as to why they ran for the school board, and they're not focused on student outcomes.
Let me stop you for a second. Why do people run for school boards? Do you have a sense of the reasons?
There's several reasons, right? One is they have a certain agenda that they want to do.
Like what?
Firing in Texas. We're in Texas. A lot of people just run for the board to fire the head football coach, which is the wrong thing to do, but it happens, right? They either want to get rid of an employee, a principal. They either want to implement some type of program that they feel. So everybody usually comes with some type of agenda, right? And then the other is possibly looking at a way to, of course, give back to your community, but sometimes as an opportunity to find other avenues to give back to your community, sort of like a stepping stone. You run for the board, you do some good work there. You could run for state rep, different, get your name out there. So it is, if somebody is looking at a political, it would be something that they would look at, right? But
okay.
So there's different.
So I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Go ahead with the other answer.
You could go down the list. I'm sure there's other reasons as to why people, right, run for the board.
And so give us a sense of, is the board model a good model? Have you seen better models? Do you think all of that power should be contained within a local school board? And how does it work, not only in your area, but you've been exposed to a lot of other boards. So a lot of questions there.
So in regards to the model, it's worked even effectively within our own community. We've had a split board where there has been infighting, but yet allowing us to set those expectations for our superintendent and let him work. he's been able to accomplish great things within our region, the El Paso region. Last year, we were an A-rated district. I mean, 2 years ago, we were the only A-rated district. And I'm not a big fan of the A through F rating system, but this is a true testament to the good work that uh, our superintendent, our teachers and staff are really addressing. But this past year, we were back to back A-rated. We had a blue ribbon school. There's a lot of good work happening, right? Um, but in regards to because we are a smaller community, and some people have come to me and say, well, why don't you all incorporate with the neighboring school district or look at, and to me, uh, our district is our identity, our community. I like to take that to the extreme, right? Some people just want us to incorporate with El Paso. Then it's like, well, why don't every district in El Paso incorporate as one regional district? As a matter of fact, why don't we incorporate, the whole state as a state um, run school district? And my biggest thing is I'm okay with it if we're addressing the inequities within the system, right? Like, let's say, because you there's some districts in our area that are paying our teachers 50, we're able to pay 60, let's say, and a more affluent pays 70. So that's a way to address certain inequities. But I think it's just a complicated system. The biggest thing that I see is uh, when we combine school districts, or we try to minimize the amount of school districts, the bigger the ship, the tougher it is to turn in regards to a low performing school and issues that have been happening. It's tough. We're doing great work in our district, and the bigger districts, the biggest, which is El Paso, has not been able to turn the ship and really address and provide a quality educational system like we are providing in our community.
All right. So, and you have a view of other districts in other places.
Mhm.
So, do you find they mostly operate in very similar ways? Do some school boards find a much more innovative path? Or David was talking minutes ago about the importance of maintaining the status quo.
The majority are K-12 uh, independent school districts or public school systems. You do have, I believe in Arizona, you have your K through 6 or K through 8, your lower grades run by a certain board, and then the high school districts are run by a different board. And so I see some benefits, but at the same time, some issues in regards to where's that communication and that alignment happening. But overall, I think the majority of K-12 systems have an independent school district or a board or board of education. They're just different names. Some have 7-member boards, some has 4-member boards.
But there are minor differences.
In Texas, we have one that has 20 plus member
Okay.
board, and that was a mistake. They're trying to cap it because it's just, imagine 20 something members on a school board.
All right. So let me jump to I guess, an equally important topic. So the status quo is important because you're dealing with a large number of people and you have a lot of proven systems, but the world is changing very fast. So attempting, for example, to stick with a science curriculum when nanotechnology and gene editing and all this are now part of the scene, there's just too much to learn. So either you're going to have very small amounts of time devoted to each of these topics, or we're going to be in a situation where the kids just aren't learning 21st century stuff because there's so much 20th century stuff to go through. At the same time, with social studies, we keep adding a year. Every year, stuff happens, right? So it becomes just a little bit more complicated every year. And there's questions about, do we really need 10 years or 12 years of math, algebra, all that? And if we do, what are we not learning? I mean, how much do kids know about diabetes, for example, which is a growing problem? And we know that it becomes even more of a problem among certain ethnicities and all that. So are the kids learning what they need to know in order to be able to face 21st century? How do you make room for the new if you're trying to maintain the status quo? And how do you have that conversation if the group of people who are in the room are primarily encouraging the superintendent to just go for a blue ribbon or go for some other, right? What do you do with that? So Karen, give us a sense of that from your side. And then I'm not sure whether David is still with us. We're seeing David, if you are, please wave and say hello. I don't want to continue the conversation without you, but Karen, why don't you jump on that if you would?
Well, I mean, I think in listening to your description, the first thing I want to say is, as a student back in the day, I mean, how much did I know about diabetes until I became an adult? That's not necessarily something they teach in everyday science, nor do I don't even think they teach that in everyday health these days.
But the obesity
But
rates among 13-year-olds are going through the roof.
Going through the roof.
So doesn't school have a responsibility there, whether it's diabetes or another topic? The world's changing.
Right, and I don't disagree with that at all. However, there's also at some point a place for parental control in that matter, because people say, in the same regard to that argument, people say, well, doesn't the school have a responsibility to teach them about safe sex when the parents don't want them to teach them about something like that? So that aside, let's go on to what you were talking about before, and it is very hard to add in and change the curriculum around certain things. Just recently after the George Floyd issue, we had parents and curriculum writing in regard to racial inequities, and which was part of curriculum to begin with, but maybe not as much as now trying to fit in something because this world issue was taking place and people needed to understand it, or the teaching of Juneteenth, which Governor Cuomo just made a national, a state holiday, so it has to be kind of brought into the curriculum, things like that. And like you said, with the new nanotechnology in science or in something like that, in that kind of a program, I believe that they're not so much taking away from the old stuff that we were learning. I think they're trying to find a way to incorporate it as well.
But I think that if you do that, you minimize the amount of time that everything gets. Armando, what do you think?
So we talked about the model earlier. I think the model in regards to the governance model, the structure is good. I think the educational model is going to have to change. In regards to the current pandemic, we were able to see a huge digital divide, right? And so we were able to address that within our own community. Our students now have MacBook Airs, and the lower grades have iPads. And we have a connectivity issue that we dealt with providing these, it's not a tower, but it's similar to address a 5-mile radius. So our students could actually have connectivity issues. Looking at hybrid models and looking at how do we want the students to go in and explore the world, right? Whatever it may be. If it's in the science area, then you go explore it. Like, hopefully they go home with their laptops now, they do homework and they start Googling and researching, and they just, it ignites a fire in them. That's great. If it's a different topic, if it's a technical thing, but we do have to change the educational model and the way we've delivered it. Because if
how do you do that? Does that happen at a local level? Does that happen at a state level? The state commissioners we're talking to all seem to say, we want this to happen. We are totally in favor of joining the 21st century in a big way. It's really up to the districts.
It's a combination of all three, actually, because there's certain federal guidelines that don't allow us to do certain stuff. There's certain state guidelines that still don't allow us to do certain stuff. And they didn't give us the capacity or the ability to do that during this, right? We were looking at how we could reinvent, especially the high school, right? Then more of the 9 to 12 model. How can we provide this as a hybrid model, but yet the state was saying, no, you got to do it this way. And it's like, okay, just give us a waiver. Let's experiment on this, if this is going to be the best. So, and then of course it has to deal with local. So it's a combination of all three, but at the same time, we need to look at research, the data, the research, and what best practices tell us. There's certain models that might be out there. There might not be models on how to deal with this, but we might need to invent them so that way we could be able to get that data and build that research and then build the best practices around it. But it's going to take its time, but we also need the flexibility from the federal and the state governments as well.
David, how much flexibility do you have in making decisions as a local school board? Could you say, you know what, we're not doing testing?
No.
Why not?
That is something that the state mandates, and that's kind of one of the deals is we take the funding from them, and they can kind of give us as to what we need to do. Then our hands aren't completely tied. I mean, there are some things that we can do what we need to do for our local students, but there are some things that are just that they're non-negotiables, and that's one of them.
The world's changing really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're training kids not to be good citizens necessarily or productive members of society in the next 2 years. You're looking at the next 10 years. You're looking at the next 20 years. So I'm giving you the magic wand. What would you do in very big, broad ways? What are the big steps you'd take to bring us in a more competitive position with the Netherlands or increasingly with Nigeria or with China? I mean, that's the reality, is we no longer lead the world. So how do we stay competitive?
Wow.
David, just answer. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Just go for it.
No, that's a pretty broad stroke. And again, I think a lot of the social aspect of this would be the tough one to get through. A lot of the students in China go to school year round. So they've constantly got that happening. The students in the U.S., I mean, we've allowed for the 3 months off in the summertime to do what needs to be done as far as an agricultural society. Not that it can't be done now, and there's a lot of students that do have to work on farms and stuff in the summertime. But in order to be able to do that, we'd have to make a lot of really tough choices.
What are the choices you'd make? What are the options?
I guess one that I see is making the school year round.
Okay.
Just to be able to compete, and that's, I guess, would be a source. I mean, to be able to push it through would be through pride. Okay, do we want to do this? Do we want to be number one again? This is what we need to do. This is where we need to go. There's again, I think some of the testing that goes on, we need to make sure that it's relevant to everybody. Right now, the kids in Fort Washy, there was a statewide test, or a test that was handed down that we were to do for our students here in our local school district. They're on the sheet. They talked about having an escalator. That I can't remember how the question was worded. Now in the state of Wyoming, there are 3 escalators.
Tell me.
Yes, in the state of Wyoming, there are 3 escalators.
Tell us.
Only?
Only. Now,
what's an escalator? Maybe I'm not understanding that.
An escalator is the moving set of stairways that goes up
Like
and
an
down.
escalator, like in the shopping mall.
I figured, but you really are talking about escalators.
Yeah, I'm really talking about it. The real thing. I'm not escalating a situation,
right?
But a school escalator. And our students had no idea what they were. My sons, we'd gone. I had a sister-in-law. My wife's sister lived in Denver, and so we'd go down once or twice a month to go see them. And we'd go to the zoo or the museum, and they had escalators there. So my kids knew what they were, but a lot of the students here had no clue.
Yeah.
Then I mean, the students in New York City, can you honestly, can you tell them, okay, well, how do you gut an elk? Our students
No,
probably
we would not know that answer. Well,
right.
some of them
Karen,
might.
is that in your curriculum in West Hempstead now?
How to gut an elk?
Yeah.
No.
However, but again, it's life experiences that our students have, and they're worldly different. And the point I was getting to is, you try to hand down something from the top down, it's not going to work. If you give us an idea as to what needs to be done within that, I think we can work within that.
Okay.
And they make it fit to our students so that they understand, number one, the question and what it is we're looking for.
Karen, what big stuff would you change? I mean, big.
Oh, that's so difficult. You know what? I think, if we were given a broad stroke to have, the biggest issue we need to do is fix the educational inequity across, the districts. And that's a problem. It is because of where all of our students are coming from and the different demographics. That's what's going to, if we can fix those inequities on how those children can be educated or not educated, and the technology they may need or whatever, then we may be able to increase our educational levels and our graduation rates and everything else. And I think that's the most important thing, is to do what's best for the children. And like he was saying, we do get all these mandates that come down from the state, that we have to create this, or they gave us state testing, and you have a child who's an English language learner who doesn't know how to speak English, but he has to come in and take this test after he's been there for 6 months. So those kind of things are just not fair and not making these children learn. We need to teach the children the way they can learn and with the tools that they can use to learn.
And it is the school board's responsibility to make that happen, is what you're saying, somehow.
Well, it's the school board's responsibility to give our educators and our superintendent the tools to do that, or to help them get the tools to do that. The state, like they were saying, we take money from the state, so our kids have to take these tests. This year, maybe not so much money because they're kind of holding back due to the pandemic, but we're kind of restricted and our hands are tied in what we can do. And for every mandate they send down, they're not sending down the money to fund that mandate.
Nothing new, right?
It takes away from what we're able to do for the kids.
Yeah, got it. Armando, big change?
So
The world, huh?
I think my personally big idea would be the integration and the discussion in regards to, in regards to the curriculum, integrating everybody's in regards to, let's say, person of color, the Black community, the Hispanic community, the Jewish community. I think we need to have a better understanding. I wrote a paper in college about dual language and how once you're able to, go through a dual language program, you have a better, a mutual respect, you have a better cultural understanding of the different sides, and hopefully that would be able to help society grow in a better way, right? So I think for us to understand our communities a lot better, and I think that could help us grow. So that would be my personal big idea. But in regards to the systems, looking at project-based learning, the technology, increasing the quality of technology, integrating it, and of course, high stakes testing, we know, is not the sole indicator for student success. So we need to find a comprehensive assessment to look at that. And now we're having to deal with the social and emotional well-being of kids. So I think we got our heads, full. I mean, our hands tied, our heads full, but we're trying to do what we can. But I think we still have a long way to go.
I think so too. Well, I'm going to ask each of you to just kind of hang on. We're going to roll the credits now, and I just want to tie things up with you afterwards. So thank you all very much. And Karen, thanks especially for doing this audio only. It kind of worked. You were very much part of the conversation, but Armando, David, Karen, thank you. So hang out. Here come the credits. For on-demand episodes and more, visit our website. Kids on Earth contains hundreds of video interviews with students from around the world. Learning Revolution is a global collaboration network for people who care about learning. Be sure to join us next Thursday for a new episode of Reinventing School. Thanks for watching.